Father in heaven, thank you for your richest blessings, your lavish love. Thank you for the opportunity to share a little of the things that have brought me to a deeper understanding of just how good you are. May it be a blessing to others. May all the distractions fade away. Those things that have happened this week that maybe rattled someone's cage, may we be able to lay it down before your feet so that our hearts and minds are open to your word. Amen. So for those of you that don't know very much about me, my name is Melissa Burret. I am actually the music leader here at Kingscliff Seventh-day Adventist Church. It's been my community that I've fellowshipped with for about 4 years now. And I can honestly say in that time, I have been so richly blessed and grown in the knowledge and love of God. And each of you have a part to play in that, so thank you. Rajon, if I just do, there it is. For those of you who know me more personally, you might know that I'm married with 4 children, but for those of you who know me personally, you'll know that I love love. Like, I am just wired so emotionally to feel and be drawn into a beautiful love story. And I've been like that from a very young age. I actually have memories. I have a brother and a sister, and they would shove me in the middle of the back seat of our tiny little Gemini, because I was the little one, so put her there. I'm pretty sure none of us had car seats. But I remember being there, which gave me the perfect access of view to the little space between mum and dad. And I remember being probably only 4 or 5, and I would see mum's hand on dad's leg. And when he wasn't changing the gears, he would place his hand on top of hers. And I just thought that was the most beautiful thing. And I remember thinking, I can't wait till I'm old enough to put my hand on someone's leg. That's just so beautiful. I was so drawn, particularly to romantic love. I was very aware of it. I knew that I wanted it. And as I head into my teenage years, very unfortunately for me, from grade 8 to grade 11, my best friend was prettier, smarter, funnier, and everyone just, nobody in the romantic department. It was kind of like Mel was the girl you want to get to know, because then you have a chance to hang out with Joe. So I know it's like a rather sad story, but that's how my high school years unfolded. And in actual fact, my anthem, like this song, as I was living out those years, there was a song at the time, and it was called, the group was called Mr. Big, and the song was called I'm the One Who Wants to Be With You. And anyone that knows it, it's like, I would just sing it over and over, and I'd be like, because it's a guy singing to a girl, and he's like, I know you love romantic movies, and you never will forget the way you felt when Romeo kissed Juliet. And I was like, yes, that's me, that is me. I really love romantic movies, and I like vanilla ones. Like, do not bring in that storyline, that nah, I just want the boy to fall in love with the girl, and they live happily ever after. That was me. And in fact, my desire to become somebody's wife and a mother, I actually specifically remember I would go through seasons of prayer, earnest prayer, because I was raised in a Christian home, so I had a belief and an understanding of God's love for me. But I would honestly pray going, dear God, I know you're coming back, but can you please wait till I get married and have one baby, just one. And I genuinely did not want his return to come until I had had the experience of becoming a wife and a mother. I'm not the only one that's prayed that prayer, but you do not need to raise your hands. That's okay. That's okay. And for those of you that are wondering, whoa, how did the story end? And you don't know, God has not returned yet. I am a wife to a beautiful man called Kenny, and we have 4 wonderful children, Annabelle, Kai, Layla, and Jarvis. Thank you. Thank you. And I can tell you now my prayers look different. It's like, dear Lord, come back. This is so hard. You didn't give us the warnings and all of these pretty little songs that love is actually really difficult and raising children is challenging. You're welcome. Please, at any time, freely and with open hearts, we receive you. In reality, our experience of human love, I mean, you hear the songs and, love is a very big theme in this world. Whether you are spiritual or not spiritual, it's an anthem out there. But in reality, in this world, love is jigsawed right aside this word called pain. And every single one of us have experienced the two together, over and over and over again. So I want you to imagine if it's a complicated thing, love, but I want you to imagine a being, we're going to call it a being from Cosmos X. And this being from Cosmos X appears to you one day and it says, hey, on Cosmos X, we've heard a lot about this thing called love, and we're just deciding if we want some. It sounds like there's a lot of noise on your planet, and I'd like to know whether it's a thing I should take back with me, so can you tell me about it? And you're like, okay, well, being from Cosmos X, that's appeared to me. Love is not a thing you can take. I can't give it to you and take it back. Love is a feeling that you feel that grows inside of you in response to people and or things. And oh, mate, it is the best feeling when those warm fuzzies and butterflies, and when you open up and you get to know it's the most amazing, wonderful feeling, because it's so much more than your mind, it's in your heart, and the being's going, that sounds great. We'll take two, and we'll grow them on our planet. And you're like, yeah, but just pausing there, it can actually, you can fall out of love too. Once you have those feelings, they're not necessarily always exactly the same, and then you can fall out, or that person that you love can, really hurt you. Really deeply and painfully hurt you. Do you guys have knives on? It'd be the same as someone it can be that painful. That can actually be the experience of love. And just as you're making your decision, it can be that someone really hurts you, or they might get sick and die, and then you've got all this love and you don't really know what to. And you can see as this exchange is unfolding, as you define love relative to how you've experienced it, it's completely perfectly reasonable for the being from Cosmos X to go, we're good luck with that, and shoot on out of there without love. Because if we're going to be honest, there's airy-fairy, beautiful, wonderful definitions, but to define or explain love relative to the way we or you as a human has experienced it makes for one very confusing definition. And I can guarantee you I'm not alone in this. As I was preparing for this sermon, I did some Google research, as you do, and I was like, I just want to find just a couple of quotes that really gel with this idea that human experience and love can be painful. So I kind of Googled something along the lines of love and pain and quotes, and just do not ever do that. Because it's like opening this box and just all of this crazy stuff out there spews out based on people's experience. I've chosen just a couple just to give you a little, because I don't want you to go and Google it, so I'm just going to choose a few to go, this is the types of thing, but this is the very, very low grade version. Sometimes it's not the butterflies that tell you you're in love, but the pain. And let's be clear, when we're talking about love, we're not just talking about romantic love between two people. By love, we're talking about relationships, which can occur then between adults and children, children and adults and their parents, friendship circles, brothers, sisters, cousins. We're talking on a wider spectrum of love. This next quote, I don't know Sulekha Pandey's story, but read with me. You and I were the blood and soul of each other. Once upon a time, your heart spoke to mine. Our souls were intertwined. As we grew up, we grew apart. And today, I cut the cord. The love has ended. The gloss has gone. The promises were made. They were all in vain, and carrying on will cause more pain. Heavy. Heavy. And I actually think it's on purpose. I don't think it's a typo. For those of you that are aware, there's vein as in V-E-I-N, blood or vein. I genuinely think she means that to be was all in vain, meaning our connection was by blood only. My interpretation of this, that this is a sibling relationship that has been viciously torn apart. That's the pain I'm reading of in that. This guy, Joseph de Maistre, was from the 18th century, born in 17-something. Look at what he says. What a miserable world. It's trouble if we love and trouble if we do not love. And that was in the 1700s. Imagine what he'd say about what he sees now. Right now we've got technology and advancements. People have the ability to destroy and violate each other far more visually than they were able to in the 1700s, right? There's a lot more platforms to use now. So I'm going to say to you, we are in somewhat of a little conundrum. Because you might come into a place like this, and you might hear these, hang on, I'm going to press pause on that. You might hear the words that God is love, and find it really hard to work out what to do with that sentence when your experience of love is pain. And I just want to explain something briefly about that. When we talk about this idea of, I have experienced love with pain, it's very easy to sort of send that out as something you've suffered, but I'm just going to pause and say that you as an individual are guilty of relational violation. Now, the word violate, to say that you violate someone is like a heinous word. You kind of have an innate sense within you to go, let's just tone that down and say hurt. I hurt people. Because when you hear the word violate, you tend to think of the worst forms of violation that your mind can imagine. So things like rape, sexual abuse, infidelity. And you tend to go, no, I'm not guilty of those. I'm not really a violator. Well, I'm going to go ahead and say that you are. That you are. You may well be in a marriage and you've not had an affair on your wife. That is excellent news. Really good. But you've said things to her you shouldn't have said. You've treated her in ways you shouldn't have. You have wounded the very being of who she is. You have. So have we as the wives. And if our goal was going to be this beautiful, big, perfect sense of love, of relational purity, you can own it and say, I get that wrong. You may not watch movies or look at TV, look at pictures of things you shouldn't look at because you're a husband, but maybe you've glanced for 5 seconds even too long on the woman walking past you whose top was too tight and skirt was too short, and you've chosen not to look away. That is relational violation. If you're a parent and you haven't physically or sexually abused your child, that is excellent. Really, it is. But you are guilty of relational violation because you've been impatient, you've been short, you've been heavy-handed, you've said things in a tone and manner that have hurt them. And if you're sitting there going, I'm good, I am off the hook because I ain't nobody's spouse and I am not a parent, well, you ain't off the hook because all of you that are unmarried without children have relationships with other people that you violate every single day of your life. The thing is, you're not just a perpetrator of violation, you're actually also a victim. Because there are two sides to that coin. And how you choose to respond to people and situations is inherently intertwined with the experiences that you've had in life. And we already know that we've all been hurt. And if you've been hurt and violated in the most offensive way, I'm really sorry that that's your story. But we all have stories of violation that are painful. One of the most beautiful quotes is from someone called Brené Brown, and I love this quote, and from the first time I heard it, it's resonated with my heart. Everyone has a story that will break your heart. And if you're really paying attention, most people have a story that will bring you to your knees. You understand what that's saying, right? The person next to you, if they were in a safe enough time and space with you to share of their experience in the lifetime that they've been here, they would have a story that would bring you to tears because it's filled with pain. Every person in this room would have that story. So where does that leave us? Our experience, our human experience of love is complicated and painful, and yet we're told in this building that the most beautiful truth of all truths, the thing that is behind the thing that is behind the thing, is that God is love. And it is true, but how do we reconcile that? I'm not going to spend too much time unpacking it for you. I'm just going to throw in a really simple word. How do we begin to understand the beautiful truth that God is love when by our own experience we associate love with pain? Here's the word. Here's the answer to the question. I'm going to throw in this big word called sin. In our human experience, sin is what causes the pain. Okay? Sin is relational violation. In any number of forms, you go pick it, it all boils down to this. It's selfish, relational violation. And the reason you don't need to bring that to the table when you're talking about a God of love is that God has sin nowhere near him. It's not in him, ever, for even a moment, for all eternity past. God, on the other hand, we are the covenant breakers. We are the ones that violate and hurt each other because we've been violated and hurt, and it's kind of all that we know. God is the one who says, I have relational integrity, faithful love, unfailing trustworthiness. That's actually, those three things, you can bring it together and call it a word called covenant. And if you've not heard it before, that's what that is. It's the steadfast, beautiful, unfailing, unviolated love of God that's existed for all of eternity for you. His promise to love us, even in the face of our unfaithfulness to him. Probably one of the ways to talk through a God of love, to understand Jeremiah 31:3, I have loved you. This is God speaking to the Israelites and us. I have loved you with an everlasting love. Therefore, with loving kindness, I have drawn you. I love that verse. I love how it resonates of a God that doesn't just say he is love, but who lives it out. And I have found in my experience of the few years of life that I've had, most people you talk to will believe in some higher being, will believe in a God. You know, very quickly when you meet someone and you engage in some conversations, you'll be like, oh, I'm going to church. Oh, you're a believer? Yeah, I believe in a God too. But you don't find as many people who believe in a higher power called God, who is love. Steadfast, unfailing love. I've not found as many people who will testify to that. And maybe it's because it's easier to say, yeah, I believe in something higher, and then get on with your life. I want to share an illustration and a story. And I first came across it from the teachings of Ty Gibson, whose word and testimony I'm so richly blessed by over and over again. And I had the privilege of meeting him. Now he's a friend, Zane. Just want you to know, me and Ty are mates. I had the privilege of meeting him last Sabbath. And I was a bit nervous because as he was doing his sermon in our congregation last week, you know, he was so beautifully talking on the theme of love. And I was like, oh, mate, you better not use my illustration. And like by my illustration, I mean your illustration that I'm going to use next week. You'll be happy to know he didn't use it. So I want to share a story first and then bring you to an illustration. When Ken and I were pregnant for the first time, we didn't know whether she was a boy or a girl. All we knew is that we were really excited. And I'm going to fast forward through all the stories I could tell you of how that experience felt, and I'm just going to bring you to the moment where I've birthed Annabelle and placed her on my chest. There is no moment in all of the world that could prepare you. Nothing could prepare you for that moment and experience. To have your flesh and blood physically there, the union of this thing called marriage here on you, and now it's yours to love and nurture and grow. And Annabelle was perfect. She was a brilliant baby, a difficult toddler, but we got through that. I'm going to share a story actually that happened in the Sabbath school room here at Kindy. We had come to visit. At this point, we were not members of this church, but we had come to visit because Annabelle's cousins would sporadically be here. And at the time, the only cousins she had were Jackson, who is my nephew, and Harrison. And the three of them are like less than a year apart. So they are all like mates and love each other, and hanging out with your cousins is like the best experience ever. And we waltzed into Kindy Sabbath School. And Jackson and Harrison were sitting down, and Annabelle races in and like sits down next to them and like, I'm here. We're all together. Best day ever. I remember what she was wearing. I was pregnant with Kai, so I remember what I was wearing too. I remember what she was wearing, and I remember her face as she sat down alongside two of her most favourite people. And she's all jittery and excited and laughing. And, you know, she must look in another direction. And I remember where I was sitting right by the door of the Sabbath school room, so I could see this across the way, and the door's there behind me. She must glance away for a moment because she doesn't notice straight away, but the two boys get up and move 4 seats away and sit down and start laughing. And by the time she notices, you know, she's like, and she sees them laughing, and she starts laughing. She's like, great, musical chairs, I love this game. And she gets up, and she goes and sits down right next to them to bring the trio together again. So this time the gap's a bit shorter. They get up and they move 4 seats away again. And she's like, great, goes and sits next to them. This time, they get up, sort of say something to each other, move around, and there's kind of less laughter. And I think she's a bit unsure in a moment, but she's just like, yay, yay. And then the final time, and I can see what's happening, right? And the writing's on the wall. She's 3. This time, when she sits down, still smiling, but it's a little less enthusiastically, when they get up, one of them says, "Ooh, you're a girl, we don't want you to sit with us." And they go across the other side of the room and they sit down. I will never forget the change in her face. Here we go, Scott. I will never forget the change in her face when for the first time she suffered pain that was not physical. She'd fallen down and scraped, and I'd seen my little girl cry. This was different. And I watched her face change as she confusingly realized, "Oh, but we're all, what do you mean you don't want?" And my mother's heart in that moment wanted to do 2 things really intensely. The first one was to race over to her and grab her and hold her and say, "Annabelle, you are so beautiful. I love you. You are so special. There's nobody just like you. You are the most wonderful girl in the whole world." And the second thing I wanted to do almost as intensely is tell off the boys. And I did both in relatively quick succession. But you can't blame them, right? I mean, that story, I remember it so clearly, and the pain it still evokes in my heart. And what is it that I really saw? Just a couple of boys playing a game. They adore Annabelle. It's not like I'd seen them grab her and throw her to the ground and say horrible things. You know, they were just being little kids. And yet to see her reaction and the pain in her is still with me so intensely, because that's my Annabelle. And I can tell you, when we had Kai, it's not like all of that love gets divided. It's not like I go, "Well, you had a hungy because you were just 1. Now you're going to have to take 50. So 50, 50. Oh, Layla, right, 25 each. That's all you got, because I got 1 heart of love. There's 4 of you. We're going to have to divide that." That's not how it works. I would be as moved and as hurt by that story for Jarvis. When Jarvis first experiences emotional pain, I will feel the same way. I know it. Because love is actually not divisible. It's fully exponential. But we are finite humans. So if I were to say, just all imagine, come with me, we've all got 4 children. Do you think you could love all 4 of your children with your whole heart? Yes, you could. What if we were all crazy enough to have 10 children? Can we love 10 children with our whole heart? Well, we can. Things get a little bit trickier on the time front and functionality. You're just eating whatever I've opened up and poured out in a big pile, and that's what we're going with. But you can love 10 children with all of your heart. But what happens then if there's 10? What happens if you were to lose 1? And if this illustration rings true in someone's experience in this place, I want to firstly say, I'm terribly sorry that that's your story. And I want you just to track with me for the point of the illustration. If you lose 1 of the 10, is it simply a matter of, never mind, we got 9 others? Is that how it works? No. Come on, I like the number 10, honey. Let's go again and we'll just fill that gap and yay, 10. No, because the 1 is irreplaceable. Because of the experiences that you've shared together, their soul, the memories, the way they were. There is nobody else like that 1. It's not a numbers game. But what happens if we draw the illustration to say you have 53 children? Can you love, okay, so here's what happens. Our brain taps out of that illustration because we are finite humans with finite emotions and feelings and ability. And that illustration just went too far for our brains to be able to understand it. This is me and you. I realize I look like a sun, a faceless sun. Just track with me. That is me and you. And those little prongs on the outside are what I'm going to call my inner circle. In my inner circle, I have an Annabelle. I have a Ken. I have a Kai. I have a Layla. I have a Jarvis. I have a mum. I have a dad. I have a brother and sister. And I'm kind of going to put that. They are my inner circle. My husband, my children, my parents, my brother and my sister. And now we look like a flower, which is also beautiful. In this illustration, I want to suggest to you, it might be tricky to read. Nearness factor, I'm a science teacher in a past life. Nearness factor is along the bottom, yielding a sensitivity quotient. If we're going to put on the scale 1 to 10 and a sensitivity quotient of 1 to 10, the story that I just told you about Annabelle yielded a sensitivity quotient of 10 in my heart. Because Annabelle has a nearness factor to me of 10. She's my little girl, and I love her with my whole heart. Brendan is married to a girl called Brittany. I love Brittany a lot. I really do. Brittany has a very high nearness factor to me, which would yield a sensitivity quotient 9.995. I really love Brittany, but Brittany has her own inner circle. Brittany has a sister called Ebony, who's married to a guy called Luke. They have 3 children, whose names I'm not going to remember. 1, Cleo, really sweet kids, 3 of them. They are in Brittany's inner circle. If something were to happen, like right now, go back to my inner circle. If my sister if I realise that in this moment she's just received a call that my dad has been in a massive car accident, life is hanging in the balance, we've got to go. I'm telling you right now, I would hand this thing over to David and say, you've got it from here, and I would be out of here. Because my dad has a nearness factor to me of 10 that would yield a sensitivity quotient to me of 10, and I've got to be there. But if I saw something happening and something had happened to Ebony, Brittany's sister, and I got wind of, something intense is going on, I might stop and say, hey, I can sense there's a commotion, and Britt's like, Eb, something's happening, I've got to be out. I'd be like, wow, that's intense, let's pray. And then I would carry on with my sermon. Ebony's married to someone called Luke, who's got his own inner circle. Luke's got a mum whose name I don't know. I don't know how many siblings he's got. You're tracking with the sentiment, right? I don't have a nearness factor to Ebony like I do to my inner circle people. And that's not because I'm cruel. That's just because we're humans and this is how it works. You cannot have infinite emotional responses to every person that's out there. You are going to tap out of that. It doesn't work. God, on the other hand, were you struggling in the beginning to go, yeah, how do I relate to a God of love when I'm so torn in pain? Let me tell you, this is God. He also looks like a flower, which, see, we're made in his image. What more evidence did you need? In his inner circle is me, Ken, Annabelle, Layla, Kai, what are all my kids' names? Jarvis, Mum, Dad, Sharon, Brendan, Brittany, Ebony, Luke, Luke's mum's auntie's cousin's brother, and the little kid who lives in Afghanistan that you saw on TV and felt sad for 2 seconds right before you went on with your real task at hand, which was making dinner. God's heart for every single person in the whole world yields a sensitivity quotient of 10 Because there's a nearness factor of 10. Because God's love is infinite, and it's infinite in its intimacy. And the thing is, we're pretty good at just going, God is love and he loves everyone. And we fail to realize how deeply and sensitive is God's heart for yours. And you think it's that you don't have big things going on, so I don't want to burden God. He cares. You know how I felt about Annabelle in that one moment, in that one silly story? I know what emotion that evoked in me. How do you think God feels when you are hurting? Do you think he goes, oh, shame, I got 7.2 other billion taking my time and my emotions and my love? No. Go back to the illustration where there was just the one. You are his one. Ellen White, who is one of the founders of the Seventh-day Adventist Church, puts it this way in Steps to Christ, and it is beautiful. The relations between God and each soul are as distinct and full as though there were not another soul upon the earth to share his watch care, not another soul for whom he gave his beloved Son. You are his one. Everything that he's done up until now, he would have done just for you. And maybe you've heard it. Maybe you've heard that sentence before. Maybe you've seen and read this quote before. But have you experienced and felt it in your heart? Because if you haven't, then it's just a cool quote. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever believes in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. The most well-known Bible verse, arguably, of all time. For God, and even in this verse, do you see it? For God so loved the whole world, the 7.2 billion people, that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever, there's the one, there's you. Even in this verse, you are told of his love for you as an individual. Don't let the bigger picture of God's love for all eclipse the intimate beauty of God's love for one. God didn't pour out his lavish love for nameless masses. God poured out his lavish love for you. You, with your wounds, with the pain that you've experienced in this life. God's the one sitting in the Sabbath school room going, run to me, because I want to tell you I love you. You are so special. There is no one like you in the whole 7.2 something billion people. And I love you. And for you not to receive that love for me, it's painful because I'm missing the one. I said to you in the beginning that love and pain coexist by our human experience because of violation. That's true. But I can also tell you that pain exists in God's heart. And there is actually a trouble with love, a real trouble with love. And the trouble with love is no one can make you love in return. God can't do that for you. I can testify of God's great love but I cannot make you, the individual, receive it, and neither can he. And I can tell you, I sat in a church for all of my life and had never received the love of God in my heart. What I had done was heard a series of things that sounded really good. And I turned up at a place I felt like I should turn up to because mum and dad told me to. And I did it for the longest time. And then one day I was vulnerable enough to fall on the floor and say, if this is you, I'm telling you, my heart is open. Be who you need to be. Show me. And I don't care how long you've been coming to church. That doesn't tell me anything impressive. I'm not necessarily that interested in what your brain knows. What I want to know is, has your heart responded to the love of God? And is that why you're here? Sometimes people who don't step into churches very often, or who are very, very, very early in their walk and their understanding of a God of love, feel like they're so different from the rest of us. I just want to say to that person, you're in the same boat with a mighty lot of people in this building. Because a mighty lot of people in this building have not truly opened their heart to a God who intimately and infinitely loves them as though they were the only one. Any person who has had a true transformational experience, we use words like a spiritual high or a true conversion. Put true conversion, put any word on it you like. Any person that's had any sort of real experience, I don't need to give it any other name. All it is a person accepting God's love and seeing it in a new way for the first time. And I didn't do that till I was well into my 30s. But it changed everything for me. The sooner you choose to receive it, the sooner everything will change for you. And it doesn't matter what your story or experience looks like. The same transformation will happen in that your heart is open to receive and you are changed. It took Ellie Penman from the standing on top of a cliff saying, I'm done, opening her heart and her mind to the love of God that her brain had heard for so long, changed everything for her. And it brought her full all the way this way to testify of his name. Her journey and my journey are the same. There's the same theme. We both, quite simply, opened our hearts to God's great love that our minds had heard for so long. The thing with God's love and the trouble with God's love is he can't force it. Love cannot be commanded. It cannot be won by force or authority. Only by love can love be awakened. If you're wondering whether he is a God of love, and I don't know, you want him just to appear and tell you, he'd be like, he could do that. You know that, right? He could just open right now and come and go, yes, I'm here, and I'm real, and I'm coming back soon. And those of you who maybe were unsure up until that point would be like, okay, good. Yep, we believe. We're in. If that's how you respond to God, are you responding in love to him? He could reveal himself now to the whole world. And then why would you be believing in him? That's not what he wants. What God is wanting is a free will, your choice to turn, open your heart, and receive. Let me tell you, when you do that, I can tell you that you will know. As sure as there is evidence that is physical, you will know. And you will see it everywhere. You will see it out there. You will see it in here. And you are going to feel it inside yourself, and you will know. Amen. And the best things happen when you understand how deeply loved you are by God the Father. When you wake up in the morning and, I don't know, you feel a little pain in the back that no one else knows about, God knows that you've got that little pain in your back. God knows your first smile, whatever that exchange was that brought a little smile to your face, God knows what that smile was for, and He smiles with you. The only trouble with love is He is there infinite and lavishly, but He will not impose Himself on a heart that says, no, thank you. So I challenge you and I call you to be people whose heart is open to God's great, lavish love. Because when you are that person, you become a testimony and a witness, and you inherently draw other people to go, I think that's a thing I want. I think that's a thing I want. And you can turn and say, that is the thing that you've got. It's not a thing you need to, it's actually something you've already got waiting. And all it's waiting for is your heart to surrender to the truth of it. I truly pray that every single one of you, at some stage in your journey, if you haven't yet, knows how to translate what's in here to receive into your heart God's lavish and great love. And I pray that it's the very thing that changes everything for you from now until He returns. Father in heaven, you truly are a God of love. And in a messed up, painful world, with messed up, painful lives, sometimes it feels so eclipsed and far away. And yet there you are, waiting for us to open our hearts so that you can pour out all of your love within us day by day by day by day by day. And when we get just the smallest glimpse of it, God, just the smallest glimpse of your love is enough, because you are infinite. We can't believe that you love us exactly the way we are today, every single one of us. You love us intimately and personally, and you feel what we feel, and you're calling and drawing and alluring us. I truly pray that the smallest glimpse of the beauty of your great, lavish love can open a heart that for so long has been closed. We love you, Father. Thank you for everything that you've done. Thank you for giving us evidence upon evidence upon evidence of your great love. Thank you for the amazing sacrifice of Jesus Christ on the cross so that we could call you, Father, and that we could have an eternity long after this beautiful life, this beautiful, painful life. You promise us an eternity with you. Thank you for all that you are. Thank you for the great truth and the evidence of that truth, that God is love. Amen.